Parking Commission, you may appeal the decision by filing for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the Commission's decision. We advise that you seek your own independent legal advice to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. I'm asking today for an approval of today's agenda.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
First and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the minutes of the May 9th meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
We have a first. Is there a second?
Second.
First and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
I apologize. I wanted to speak on the minutes, please.
Okay.
Prior to the approval motion.
Okay. Well, we'll consider a discussion. Yes.
Is my microphone on? Is that on? Thank you. So I was re-watching the commission meeting of the last meeting, Chair Green, because I was a little concerned that the analysis as it related to the Connect Downtown induced pause, around which we had a whole lot of discussion, that the analysis did not reflect my motion or the discussion that we had had. And so I've arrived early today to look at that section in the minutes because we do not get the minutes ahead of the meeting. And so I don't feel that section C fully reflects the discussion or the motion that was made.
Do you have recommended language that you would like to prepare?
So I think I appreciate that our minutes always say you can look at the video. But on section C, it's lacking a motion, and I think the motion was a one-meeting deferral with a request for a detailed implementation proposal.
All right. So would someone like to modify the motion to approve the minutes with that revision? Would that be agreeable to you?
Yes, sir. Okay. I can make that motion.
Okay. We need to amend the existing motion.
So moved.
Okay. We have a first. Is there a second? Second. Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The minutes are approved. Okay. Before we proceed to other business, welcome Mayor Cooper to our meeting, and we will let you step forward and thank you for coming. This in 12 years of being on the commission, it's the first time the mayor has come. So we are glad you are here. Thank you.
Thank you. And first I want to thank all of you. Thank you. And I'm grateful for all of your hard work. I'm here today to talk briefly about the issue of sidewalk vending. And I want to thank you for launching a process for reviewing and updating Metro's current sidewalk vending regulations. Now, as you undertake that process, I want to share with you what I am hearing from concerned residents, business owners, and visitors to Nashville. So now, as downtown Nashville's foot traffic has multiplied in recent years, so too has the number of sidewalk vendors. And vending has gone from being a marginal convenience to passersby to a substantial blight for both pedestrians and brick and mortar businesses. Now, sidewalk vendors use public right-of-way to operate their private businesses. And our city's public right-of-way, as you know so well here on this commission, is a precious resource. And our downtown sidewalks are used by literally tens of thousands of people every day. And the proliferation of sidewalk vending stands has clogged up our sidewalks, impeding movement of pedestrians. Now, in conversations with business owners, I've heard repeated complaints about the disruptive effect that vendors have on their businesses. Now, our public safety professionals have warned about the safety risks posed by multiple propane tanks, generators, and the selling of intoxicants. And residents and visitors alike have decried the sale of items that are less than family friendly. Now, we've reached a point where sidewalk vending has become a net negative for quality of life and the business landscape in Nashville. And we're working on multiple fronts to make Nashville a cleaner and safer city. And I need your help to clean up street vending. To fully represent the community, I'm asking that you slightly increase the size of your working group to include additional stakeholders. And I urge you to extend the zone in which sidewalk vending is prohibited, as well as eliminate the exceptions where vending is currently allowed in that zone. Now, our police need clear and straightforward regulations to enforce. And I'm proposing a prohibition of street vending between Union Street and Korean Veterans Boulevard, spanning from the Cumberland River to 8th Avenue. And please also consider enhanced penalties for non-compliance so that our police are empowered to address this issue. And I also encourage you to consider a limited carve-out in the new regulations to grant exceptions to nonprofit entities on a case-by-case basis. I think that's excellent work for a commission to be able to apply on a case-by-case basis, to hear those cases, and you'll make an excellent judgment on that. Now, as we take action to clean up our downtown, I would also encourage this body to think beyond the boundaries that I've spelled out. As our visitor foot traffic expands to other neighborhoods, so too will sidewalk vending, and we need a strategy for addressing this concern before it becomes a detriment to neighborhoods like Midtown, the Gulch, 12 South, Wedgwood, Houston, East Nashville, or Germantown. Now, sidewalk vending has a disruptive effect on downtown residents, office tenants, business owners, as well as our hospitality industry. And we need to clean up this safety and quality of life issue before it gets any worse. And thank you for your tireless work on this issue and service of our neighbors across Nashville on this issue and all other issues. Again, I'm grateful for your service and your time and your commitment to our city. So with that, I just wanted to come and let you know how I felt and to appreciate you and your work ahead in dealing with this important problem for the quality of life in Nashville. Thank you. And thank you, members. I'm going to get back to my work. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming today.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
it.
Thank you, Angie. Appreciate it.
Okay. One of the things I want to cover quickly here was a couple of housekeeping items that we want to make people aware of. One is, based on conversations with staff, et cetera, we want the public to know that items that you want to add to the agenda for upcoming meetings, we're going to request a 4-week notice, and that will allow staff and everyone to be able to give sufficient preparation for these meetings. And I just also want the commission to know that one of the things that, as chair, I'll be meeting with the staff on a monthly basis before the meeting so that we can try to work on some of these process improvements to make sure we get information in a timely manner prior to the meeting so that everyone has had a chance to look at it and to be fully informed and apprised. So again, I urge, if you have questions, comments, concerns, please direct to staff, and then we'll work to incorporate those as moving forward. So we're trying to, we've had some changeover in staff over the last several months. We have that stabilized. So going forward, we're looking forward to improving our process and better serving the public. So thank you, commissioners. I want y'all to be aware. All right. The next item is the approval of the consent agenda. Please note that items on the consent agenda will be voted on at a single time. No individual public hearing will be held, nor will the commission debate these items unless a member of the audience or the commission requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda that we need some additional time? Yes, Chase.
Yes, I'd like to strike item G from the consent agenda. We wanted to talk about that internally a little bit more. It involves an abandonment of at a bridge.
Okay,
So if you can strike that.
okay. And,
Point of
yes,
order.
Lieutenant. Wait, just Lieutenant first.
Well, I was just going to ask, is staff requesting a deferral or withdrawal or,
They said withdrawal.
oh, withdrawal?
All right. Officer.
The item B, Quail Run Court and Quail Run, I don't have an issue with what's on here, but in looking at some information prior to the meeting, it looks like Quail Run Court and Quail Run, there is no traffic control. Quail Run at Quail Road, there is currently a yield sign, but no stop sign. So I just was going to ask for clarification on
Okay.
where they're requesting the stop sign.
All right. That's a, is it court, road? These are important.
Stop. It's a single stop, not an all-way.
Right. What's the answer, please?
It's a stop on Quail Run Court at Quail Run.
Okay.
And that is not the picture that was sent to us in our report. The picture is Quail Road at Quail Run. So currently there is no traffic control. There's not even a yield sign.
Okay.
So I don't have a problem with the stop sign. I just wanted clarification.
How would you, should we ask for a deferral of this item for clarification? I think that would be recommended.
That's fine. It is the agenda is correct. The package you received sounds like it has the wrong picture, so
That is correct.
recommendation is still for a stop sign on Quail Run Court. And I'm okay with leaving it on the agenda, but if you as a group want to defer it a month, we can get you the correct info in your package.
Okay. How would you like to proceed?
I'm fine with proceeding.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody on the commission recognized the
Thank-
picture was not the actual intersection.
Thank you for your attention to detail. Any other items? Okay. If not, we'll read the consent agenda and move for approval as modified. Item A, authorize a new truck restriction on Saddle Creek Way east of Hickory Boulevard requested by Councilmember Stiles. Item B, authorize stop control on Quail Run Court at Quail Run. Item C, authorize reduction of speed limit on Hesse Road from 30 to 25 miles per hour east of Earnhardt Road to the terminus of Hesse Road, requested by Councilmember Evans. Quick question, maybe at the next meeting, someone can give us an update on the reduction of speed limits around town that had been approved prior, so we can kind of see where we are with that. Item D, authorized reduction of speed limit on Whittlemore Lane from 45 to 35 miles per hour from Burkett Road to Old Hickory Boulevard. Item E, authorized reduction of speed limit on Blairfield Drive from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour from Pettis Road to Cane Ridge Road, requested by Councilmember Stiles. And item F is mandatory referral 2022M002AB001, a request for the acceptance to abandon a portion of alley number 1089 right-of-way starting at southeast corner of parcel 0601300300 and northeast corner of parcel 060130062000, then westward to dead end. The easements are to be retained. This is requested by Ollie Tamer Bose Kalar with Start LLC. And item G has been removed. So the consent agenda has been read. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. The item is approved. Okay. The next item on our agenda is smart parking contract consideration for approval. Ms. Alicorn, if you could step forward, please. Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Do I not? Oh, no, I do. Thank you. Sorry about that. So I'll start all over again. Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to visit with y'all again. What's before you today is the actual parking agreement that we have with Last Parking for the parking operations here in Metro Nashville and Davidson County. As you can tell, not much has changed since the last time we brought this before you, other than fine-tuning of some of the Scribner errors that we had, but just to go back over real quickly some of the highlights of this is a 5-year term agreement where the Last Parking will receive a management fee. There is a $2 million guarantee that is required in this that will kick in after year 1. They also have the ability, outside of receiving their annual management fee, which is actually on page 12, it does scale up over the 5 years of an additional $30,000 based on key performance indicator, which you will find in one of the schedules in the back. The dollars received will actually, for the parking, will actually be going into a Metro Finance banking account. So therefore, we are, as per the terms of the contract, going to be providing them with a 90-day operating expenses based on the business plan. In the first 30 days, once the contract is done and is actually implemented, they have 30 days to provide us with the business plan that will include how we're going to be purchasing and scaling up the parking program, as well as the operating budget for the first year, in which case they'll receive 90 days worth of expenses up front, 90 days worth of fund to cover their expenses. With that, they're required to provide us with the P&L by the 10th day of the following month of the prior month's business, and then we have approximately 20 days in which to reimburse them after that for those 90 days. Again, every single bit of dollars that we collect for the parking program will be going into a Metro bank account. The insurance in place, just one of the things I want to highlight about the insurance, because it is just pretty much standard insurance language, is that we are have also asked them to provide a technology piece into it, insurance piece into it, just given that a lot of our business plan moving forward will be based on technology, not just the smart meters, but also we will be going with the option of people to be able to pay through an app or as well as through a QR code. So we are trying to make it very user friendly. And I think with that pretty much covers everything. Did I forget anything? What does that mean? Peace?
Did you talk about the $2 million?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
There is a $2 million guarantee. I put that right up front. So other than it's just kind of cleaned up and looking a lot prettier than it did before, we are asking for approval of this contract with Last Parking for 5 years of management of our parking operations here in Metro Nashville, Davidson County. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions? And then I know there's people here who want to make some comments.
Thank you so much for all the work. It's appreciated a lot. Can you explain, if somebody wants to be a part of your process, a minority-owned company that wants to join in this contract, what do they need to do? If we get calls about that, what do we need to say?
So I will tell you, it was part of a requirement of the actual contract. So LAS did put forth a minority partner that will be at the table with them on this contract, and that'll be included in one of the schedules, I believe. It's the contract agreement, but because their proposal will be part of this contract as well. So we do have a minority partner sitting at the table for this contract.
Just to be nosy, does that person have any Nashville or Tennessee connections? Or
you know what? I am not 100% sure, but I do have a representative from Last Parking. If I could invite Rob up here, he can actually probably answer that question a lot quicker than I can.
Thank you.
Welcome. Have a seat. Please state your name for the record. Thank you.
Rob Maroney, Vice President with Last Parking. And good afternoon, everybody. Just to let you know, our minority partner on this contract is Hudson and Associates. They're actually based out of St. Louis, Missouri, but they do have ties to the Nashville community. Sheila Hudson, who's president and founder of the company, is a native of Nashville. Yep, that's good. And we will have other opportunities as well for minority participation throughout the life of the contract.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Yes. Yes, Ms. Council Member.
Thank you. My question is around the deliverables. So, the contract contemplates that, from signing 30 days, there's the plan for this, the plan for that. And so some of that is kind of still to be seen. And so I'm wondering what is kind of the visibility on that, or whether to this commission, the council, online, like what is the process that you anticipate for that, Director?
Thank you very much. I appreciate that question. So it is my hope that I will be giving your approval today to move the contract forward to our council. We actually have this as a placeholder for the first meeting in June. It requires 3 readings, so then we'll have 2 readings in July. And then I'm hoping that by the end of July, we'll have an executed contract. So August 1st is my hopefully start date. And so with that ticking is about a 12-week lead time on the equipment to be purchased. So in that 12-week, which is 90 days, is the business plan, the operating standards, all of the operational scenarios that we need to actually, we will do more of a full-blown assessment. Kind of plan on thinking I'm going to be back before y'all in those 90 days talking through about the rates as well as the hours of enforcement and the hour and the actual time hours that we'll be bringing back for requests for adjustments to all of that. And then once we do that, I'm figuring by the end of October, we'll have the equipment in and we'll start the installation. I'm giving the team 45 days for installation of the equipment. Also during that time, we'll be starting up training, get folks hired. We should be up to board. But by that point, I'm actually in mid-November, and I'm not really comfortable with coming out with a full force parking plan, during the holiday season. This is not really makes a merry feeling to be giving citations. So we're going to be doing a lot of education during that time, where we're going to be mainly giving out, I want to say, warning citations versus actual citations. However, if someone does violate it twice in a row, they're going to get a citation the second time. But that's kind of our goal through the holiday season. And then right after the holiday season, we'll do a much more intense education. And then February 1st is kind of my hard date that we would actually look at having a full parking plan and program in place and moving forward. And of course, I have committed to this commission that I'll be back before y'all every quarter to give you an update, let you know where we're at. And I will continue to keep to that commitment so that we keep you abreast of what's happening. But I anticipate in between those quarters, I'm going to be before you anyway, making requests as well.
Any other questions from members? Okay. All right. Well, I know there's some people here who would like to make some comments. That we're going to open this up and allow others to share comments and concerns.
Mr. Chair, do you
Yes.
want us to stay at the table just in case?
No, if you can we'll have some other people step forward and
We'll step back.
Stay in the room. That would be great.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Just make sure your mics are on, and if you could please, each of you state your name for the record, please.
Hi, my name is David White, and I'm an attorney with the Nashville office of Nelson, Mullins, Riley, and Scarborough, and I'm here today representing the Commercial Parking Division of SP Plus Corporation, which maintains its national support office here in Nashville. A successor to Central Parking started by Monroe Carroll, and Rob Toy and Bob Camper with SP Plus are here with me today. And we're asking the commission to take no action at this time to approve the proposed smart parking contract, which is currently the subject of a valid bid protest by SP Plus. At the May 9th meeting of the commission, SP Plus learned for the first time that Metro apparently is proposing financial terms for the smart parking contract, which are significantly different and inconsistent with the financial terms specified in the request for quotations, which I'll refer to as RFP, on which SP Plus was asked to propose and did propose in the first round. Therefore, SP Plus filed a bid protest with the Metro Procurement Department and copied the commission staff. Within 10 days after learning that the terms had changed, as required by the Metro Code and the procurement regulations, and the bid protest was timely filed. It has to be filed within 10 days of a participant in the process learning of the basis for the protest. And May 9 was the meeting when the information was presented, and the bid protest was submitted on May 18. By way of background, SP Plus was the top scoring proposer in round one of the RFP process, and was one of the 3 firms invited to propose in the second round. The financial model specified by the second round of the RFP required a $2 million payment to Metro prior to the payment of any cost, expenses, fees, or capital costs. So the $2 million payment to Metro was listed on the pro forma financial statement for projections as an expense of the operation of the parking system. And then below that were all the other operating expenses of the system. Actually, the one proposer that participated in the second round, both SP Plus and the other proposer who was asked to participate, didn't participate because they said the model is unworkable. But the one proposer who did participate projected revenues from the parking operation of $4.5 million. But the system had never generated over $1 million at any time prior to that. So the proposal, the financial model that Metro had proposed in the original RFP was simply unworkable. It would have required more, millions more in additional revenue just to cover the expenses. So SP Plus submitted for its second round response a letter summarizing this information to Metro. After receiving confirmation from Metro that Metro would not consider any other financial changes to the terms, SP Plus could not in good faith submit a proposal with unrealistic revenue projections with the goal of getting the award and then just negotiating better material terms, which unfortunately sometimes happens in the procurement industry. This is not the way the process is supposed to proceed. Based on the information available to us, we believe that Metro has discarded the original financial model, at least what was outlined in the pro forma financial statement. And SP Plus would have been in a position to submit a competitive bid on the terms that Metro is now proposing. I think the issue is that the $2 million that keeps being thrown around was listed in the original solicitation as an expense of the operator. And now it's unclear exactly how that figures into the process and in the operation of the parking system. The SP Plus protest was submitted on May 18, like I said, and has not been addressed either formally or informally. And today is June the 13th. In fact, during almost the month that has passed, Metro, rather than engaging with us either formally or informally, elected to change the smart parking contract matter on the agenda from an update to consideration for approval. And actually, what is presented as the final form of the contract went up on the website maybe this morning. I saw it on my phone when I was coming over here. It didn't come up until there's been a draft that was a part of the original solicitation. But the revised contract has just very, very recently been posted. And so rather than engaging with us on the protest and trying to resolve it, instead, now it's being presented for approval. This is very disappointing, to say the least. And I think it's put this commission in a difficult position because the protest is unresolved. And I don't believe this commission would endorse this process. Therefore, any contract presented to you today is subject to a valid dispute. And under the Metro procurement requirements, further administrative appeal rights exist after the purchasing agent addresses the protest. And the pursuit of any further legal remedies would follow any such administrative appeal. Basically, if the purchasing agent rejects the protest, then there's an appeal right to the Metro Procurement Board. And I'm using the term Metro because I'm not exactly sure who's making these decisions, whether it's the traffic staff, whether it's the procurement staff, whether it's Metro Legal, wherever it's coming from, we don't really know. We're going on the basis of the information that we have. I do have copies of our protest letter. I don't know what the procedure is, if anybody wants one or has not seen it. I want to thank you for your time, and we're glad to answer any questions you may have. I have copies of the pro forma financial form that was submitted or presented in the original RFP, as well as the response that was submitted by the only responder in round 2, which showed for year 1 almost $4.5 million in parking revenue, and the Metro payment treated as a priority expense, and then the other expenses coming off after that, which I don't think is what is now being presented or proposed, and basically precluded SP Plus from participating in the process because it was just unworkable.
Thank you for your presentation and your time. Are there any questions? Yes, Commissioner.
Can we get an interpretation from Metro Legal since we are not the procurement board?
Yes, the protest procedure would be addressed to the purchasing agent. And she's unfortunately not here that I can see. But I have discussed this issue and have seen the protest letter and have discussed it some with my management and with procurement staff. And I believe our conclusion is, I'm just emailing some people to confirm this, but I believe that our position is that SP Plus's letter in response to the second round of the RFP was non-responsive, and therefore they're not in a position to submit a valid protest.
Okay, thank you. Yes, council member.
My question is for Ms. Costonis. So as far as informing this commission, what obligations does procurement or purchasing have? I guess I'm surprised that Ms. Hernandez Lane is not here to respond, but, so, I mean, you're telling us that you've emailed to confirm, but, I mean, I'm hoping that we have something more
I have not actually heard back yet, but I believe that is the consensus that was reached in discussions earlier. I honestly don't know if it occurred to anyone to invite Ms. Hernandez Lane back. I know that she was present at the last meeting, and so may have felt that they were present and able to address questions at that time.
Okay, so has this protest letter been sent to our commission? Mr. White indicated there's been no response from procurement.
The response would be from purchasing, but again, they did not, I believe the conclusion was that there was not a valid protest in this case because they did not actually bid on the second round of the proposal.
But do they not need to issue a formal letter to that effect to Mr. White as a protester and to us as a commission? Or I just wonder why is there no documentation?
If it is a valid protest, then there is like a process that kicks in terms of like the purchasing agent, I believe, makes an initial decision in terms of whether the protest is valid, and then her decision is appealable to the Procurement Appeals Board, which is made up of a variety of, I think, Metro officials at the director level who will then hear the appeal and allow both sides to present. But because their bid was non-responsive, that process was not followed in this case.
Commissioner Woods.
Since it sounds like we don't have all the information and you're not getting, a quick response, I'd like to move to defer so that we can get a little more valid answers next month before we move. I'd like to move to defer for a month so that we have all the answers that we need for this commission.
I agree with that. Because one's saying one thing, the other's saying something else.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion to defer, and we have a first and a second. before proceeding any more, is there anyone else in the audience that's here to discuss this matter? Okay, just want to check to make sure that all voices are heard before we make a consideration. Okay, so is there discussion of this motion by any commissioners? Questions?
I guess I would just ask that in the intervening time, is it clear to Ms. Costonis what it is the commission kind of wants to know, right? We just want to know the rationale. So if we are asserting that then they are SP plus it's not a valid, I think we need some sort of formal documentation to that effect, is what I would hope to see, Chair.
Okay, I understand, and I will relay that. I'm unfortunately not the attorney for the purchasing department, but I certainly work with them, and we'll pass that along. I will say that this commission is not in that, chain of communication for purchasing appeals and protests. So I don't necessarily see why this issue would prevent you from approving the contract before you today.
Well, then can I go back then and ask?
Yeah, ask a question, please.
So why are these people appearing before us if it's not part of our process? If there's some unclearness, too, I know y'all are trying to be transparent, which we want to do.
Yeah, and I believe, and again, I'm not the purchasing attorney, so I'm kind of remembering this from tangential experience of it, but I believe that there is a provision that is sometimes invoked in situations where there is a valid protest, where the purchasing agent will kind of put a hold on the process continuing, but she has not elected to do that in this case, so you all are under no obligation to defer.
I still want to defer because of transparency, which is, I know, important from the mayor on down.
Okay. So we have first and a second. We've had discussion. Is there any further discussion from members? Okay. Is there call for a vote? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So we'll come back to this item next month, and we'll go from there. Thank you. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the Connect Downtown authorize a temporary pause on a new curb utilization approval. And I guess one of the things I'd like to note, it seems that item J, K, and Q on our agenda seem to be also connected to item I. And so, because one is, Q is removing 17-meter parking spaces for a bike lane, and K is a loading zone on Grundy Street, and J is a new valet on First Avenue South for the Rutledge. So can, who's going to present about item I? Jason?
Yeah, I can start. So going back to just our last meeting and Commissioner Henderson's comments regarding a more detailed implementation plan. Can you hear me okay? I think we, working with legal and other staff, we tried, and what I probably should have done is spoke more directly with Commissioner Henderson on detailing this further, but we attached the limits of the study. We tried to kind of focus more in on your agenda. It actually says pause on new curb utilization approvals. I should have updated that to deferral of new valet location permits. We wanted to try to narrow our focus because after talking with legal, it seemed like the valet location permits are a little bit more difficult to undo than, because they're up for annual renewal, undo than the loading permit chapter of code. So the focus now really is on the new valets, and we wanted to try to articulate that. We referenced the code section, Metropolitan Code Section, Chapter 1241. We also recommended, the duration of the study plus another additional 30 days for all of us to kind of review the study and look at it. I think this is what we have before you with our recommendation. And if you have any questions, I can respond to those or staff. But we were trying, I guess, be more detailed with what we were asking based on Commissioner Anderson's recommendation.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any questions from commissioners? Any? Commissioner Henderson?
Yes. So I did go back and review the last meeting because I was surprised, as I expressed when we were approving the minutes, that while I appreciate there's additional information here, the code section particular to valet permits, and that there is a difference now. It is just valet permits, not curb utilization, loading, all the other stuff. And having just re-listened to this lengthy discussion that we had and what I had asked to be in the analysis for purposes of making this decision, it's just, it doesn't reflect the discussion or the request made in the motion. I think what Commissioner Tefel and I and others were wanting really to talk about from an implementation perspective. We had a lengthy discussion about, temporary permits. Could we contemplate a middle path wherein, with full disclosure, somebody who is applying for a valet permit would understand that it was conditional in some fashion, that given this study, and so that it was kind of fair warning. So what I had hoped is that there would be some sort of analysis relative to the code about whether that was feasible or possible. Was there a middle path, and how could that be implemented or not? If it can't, that's fair. I think I respect and appreciate the desire to put a pause on this. But if we've only got, on average, 6 of these a year, I know a lot of things are changing downtown. It's fairly volatile, but I'm wanting to hear more about how it will be implemented, and then if there was any contemplation of I know they are only annual permits. I know the process for the valet is more extensive for revocation, but I'm not necessarily thinking about revocation. I'm just thinking of a kind of a conditional use, and I don't see that reflected in the analysis. So I'm wanting to hear more about that if it was contemplated. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you. All right. Comments to those concerns, please?
I would say, I think we could, I know we discussed the temporary loading zone or temporary course of action for permits that NDOT has, and we actually have that in process now for that development. I believe their opening date has moved to the 25th, and I think we were open to taking any requests for valet parking during this kind of deferral. But I definitely think we could put a plan like you're recommending, Commissioner Henderson, to show, this is what we're deferring. This is the interim process, I guess, is what's being recommended. And, and just kind of detailing that as much as we can for the public and posting that maybe on the website, TMP Commission website, just for reference. Is
Well,
that?
Why don't we do, there seems to be confusion. When I always find there's confusion to me, I'd like to go back to the beginning. And that is, what is the goal of the request of the moratorium? What are we trying to accomplish? And what steps are required to accomplish that? So why is valet, why do we not need any more valet zones? And then, I see there's removal of parking meters. If we're trying to understand the curbside as of today, it would seem to me we want to understand it as of today with whatever is currently in place. So that's part of what I'm trying to understand is what is the original goal and how are we trying to get there, please?
So, Chairman Green, this is Brad Freeze with the Nashville DOT. So, as we presented the Connect Downtown study and the background of why we're doing so, it is really meant to fully analyze all of the operations downtown and come up with recommendations of how we use the curb space in the future. So, therefore, we were wanting to hold static current operations so we can actually go through this study period. That's what the intent of the moratorium was, to actually give us clear data so we go through there. So we had first come to the commission requesting all curb space moratorium on that until we actually concluded the study so we can actually have time to go through and submit recommendations, and for some reason I can't talk. Recommendations as far as policy moving forward of how this commission is actually going to function and approve those.
So to add to that, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Given that we are underway with this study and we're actually 4 months into it, we anticipate that we'll have some ideas about what the recommendation will look like in the first part of the new year. So again, so that we would be able to have the right information, but what I really was hoping is that we wouldn't give something up that we would then have to turn around and take away based on the outcome, because they are looking at the overall traffic flow in the downtown holistically. And so it is my, I do feel like some of the recommendations that'll come back will be to remove meters off of one street so we can open up more lanes so traffic can move in and out. Or it could be that we move the bicycle lanes to this street so that we take this into consideration for how we move scooters. I anticipate that we're going to get a very holistic. So I just would hate, especially with our rules and the way we're set up, that I do something and we ask y'all to give something and then we have to turn around and take it away because of the way we're going to redesign the downtown so it moves. Right now, we do not move. As Brad had shared in his last presentation, you can move quicker walking or running down Broadway than you can being in a bus. And so that's part of it. We go as one of our partners in this, and transit really comes to a standstill when we are talking about peak times in the downtown area. But our office buildings also are having trouble getting people in and out of the office building. So it's not just one particular thing. Everything and all the dynamics of it is making it very difficult to move with all the different modes. So we just do not want to put any larger strain on the downtown core at this moment until we get the recommendations back from the study. Bring that to y'all for consideration and then move forward from there. And I just would hate to have y'all provide something today that we would otherwise would be taking away in the future. Thank you.
Yes, council member.
Thank you, Director Alarcon. As was discussed at last meeting, the valet permit is an annual permit. And so I guess, what I was looking for was contemplating from a process standpoint, if we could, just through communication and fair warning, right? Like if you are applying for a valet permit or loading zone I appreciate that you've taken it down to valet, but to your point, it is everything.
It is everything.
So, we're elevating awareness about Connect Downtown. You've communicated about the study. We're talking about it again today. So I think there's a general awareness in the community. So, I think we can get to a place of fair warning where if somebody comes and says, okay, I want this for my restaurant, they do it fully knowing that when this study is complete, we may say that's just not going to work here. And I understand that is harder, but it is an annual permit. Now to process, and that's what I was kind of, again, asking. So practically, I understand that if you're going to take away a loading zone, as written or in the code, that's a fairly easy thing to do. You can just kind of say, this isn't working, this isn't safe, we're pulling that back. But that for valet zone, it's a lengthier or more detailed process. I was hoping that you could communicate to us, what is that process, right? So if you're going to assert that it's harder to take it back, even though it's an annual permit, and so we have to put a moratorium, then we as a commission in the community, I would like for folks to understand why then, I mean, if it's an annual permit, like how hard is it? I mean, if we give fair warning, why does that not cover it?
Even with fair warning, they're still entitled to that permit for a year, and then it gets an automatic renewal. So we would have to come in with the public safety issues. So for example, if you were to...
That's a salient point, Director, an automatic renewal per code.
Automatic renewal, which we would then, which is how it's set up right now, is that there's an automatic renewal. So we would have to send out notice, and we would have... There's a lot of steps we would have to go through in the process. So am I saying it correctly, Jason, or am I incorrect? Right. So we would have to then, we're following the ordinance. Thank you, Brad. So right now, what we would have to do, you can jump in anytime too. I'm not going to get offended. So just real quick, the ordinance does say that once you actually provide a permit, it is eligible for a renewal. And then if we are going to revoke it, we have to give just cause. Now, the study could be just cause as to why to do that, but I can't do it until the renewal period. So if you give something today, they get it for the whole year, and then I can actually revoke it saying the study's here, commission's done this, but for a whole year, we're going through trying to fix things when we could just probably be doing it in about 6 to 7 months. So that's kind of why I'm asking for things to stay status, so that we have a chance to finish the study, understand what it was and what is going on and what the impacts are, and then come forth with y'all with those recommendations and improvements. And then based on that, you would have some really good guidelines and suggestions and recommendations about how would be the best way to move forward in our downtown core when it comes to valet. It will also help us from a department perspective that when we have developers come in, we can say, here's the Connect Downtown study. If you're development, if you're asking for something that's not built into this study, we're not going to approve it. So it gives us all a lot of information that we can share, and it can be pre-shared so that designs are based on that as well. So there's going to be some great things that come out of it. We just have this really clouded moment right now of the in-between that we kind of need some assistance to get to the end game.
Legal counsel, can you verify?
Yes.
So this is ordinance that as passed by council, is that
yes,
correct?
This is part of the Metro Code. What the Metro Code says is that, and the director laid it out very accurately, is that the non-renewal of a permit is treated much the same as discipline. Like if you were to, for cause, bring a permittee before you and have a hearing on whether to revoke or suspend their permit for cause, you use the same process for a choice not to renew a permit. So the presumption, I guess, would be that it would be able to be renewed, but that is a rebuttable presumption, but you do have to go through a lot of due process before you can get there.
So it would appear that if we want to look at these annually and not automatically renew them, then the council needs to make a change to the ordinance. That's what it appears to be the case. Okay. Commissioner.
So what I'm understanding is you all, because of the planning process that we're in, are asking us to defer everyone that's coming forward right now.
Correct.
Do we have for period of how long, or is it month to month?
We're anticipating the study
March.
to be completed in March and be back before this board with the recommendations based on the outcome of that study. That will sort of be the platform and the guidelines that we would all use to determine the best way to keep things lively, moving, and most of all, safe in our downtown area. And also bubbling out a little bit, because the study doesn't focus just on the downtown core. We have issues that go a little bit further out, both east, west, north, and south. So it's going to give us some really good guidelines.
So if we ask to defer, are we making motions to say, I defer every item that comes up for a valet until March of 2023?
Yes, you'd
That is correct.
basically be proposing to prospectively defer all requests for valet parking permits or stands locations that come before this commission between now and the end of the first quarter of 2023.
So if we, last question,
go ahead.
if we do that, will people know that before before they start applying for a permit? I mean, is that, if that is what if that's what we follow?
We will communicate that,
Wait
yes.
just a minute. I see you. Wait just a minute, please. Okay. So can someone answer that? Yes, go ahead. And then I know we have someone, I think.
So once we get to study, what's the process for the automatic renewal? Would that already automatically defer to the study process, or would the Metro code need to be changed in addition to?
It would not change the Metro code currently, so yes, go ahead.
Go ahead.
The process would continue, that automatic renewal process without cause would.
So everything that we defer to March would then?
No, are you asking if there's ones out there that are getting ready to expire? Is that what
Yes.
you're asking?
Yes, and the process, because the auto renewal obviously is something else that is something that is being.
So if we were to defer, so if any renewals come up between now and March, we would have to bring this before the board with the recommendation to defer it until March, or to extend them till March instead of being on the renewal. So they'd have to go through their due process. The second part of your question is, would we want to change the ordinance? And the answer to that is yes, sir, we do. So we will be coming back before y'all at a later date with some update to the ordinance. So there is 2 steps, but yes, they're entitled, the folks that have today's valet permit are entitled to the renewal. We can come back and bring that to the board and say, we do not want to do the renewal because we have the contract, we have this study ongoing. We would like to either A, not renew it, or B, only extend it till the end of March until we get the results back. But that has to be a decision that this board makes. It is not something that we can actually imply.
Just curious, what's the process to change the ordinance?
So I would imagine that's a 3-reading ordinance.
It would be, yes, that's correct.
And so, I think, to your point, this is kind of why I was asking for an outline that sort of implements, because, we do have the renewals, we do have a potential code change. So, I mean, that it takes time just to draft it, and then 3 readings. We meet every 2 weeks. So at a minimum, it's a 6-week process on the council side.
So it coming out of this study, there could be other recommendations where ordinance needs to be changed.
Yes, sir.
Or
That is part of the study, so we do anticipate, looking at the valet ordinance is one of the things that we actually have asked them to do under this study. So we anticipate they would actually be coming back with some recommendations on the ordinance to make it much more viable and work better for us based on the outcome of the study as a whole.
Okay. I mean, I think for several years, this commission has reviewed, evaluated, struggled with valets and trying to implement a good process and ensuring that the costs justify the curb space, et cetera. So,
and if I could just answer to that just real quick, and I know you didn't put that in a question format, but that will also be provided in this study.
okay. Okay, so I know that before we make any kind of further, I know that, I guess you're with PNC, is that what your shirt says? Okay. I think it's only fair to I know there's some people in the audience that want to speak to this issue, the valet, and this is their opportunity to speak. So we'll let you step forward.
Well, good afternoon. My name is JT Maynor. I work for a parking management company as one of their area managers. Okay. Yes, I've sat in on many of these meetings discussing this exact topic. Historically, from our end, it seems like the renewal comes out in the first quarter every year because we are supplied a list from Metro of every location that's under our name, and then basically we either renew it or don't. The only reason why we wouldn't do it if it's a business that we don't operate in anymore. The lady to my right here actually is with the Rutledge. And kind of dumb luck, we just ran into each other at this meeting. I'm here for a different agenda that's coming up, I think 2 more spots down today, which is for the Soho House valet, for the permanent lane valet there. If these are going to be completely deferred until March of next year, does that mean we're required to operate under a temporary valet lane permit for that duration?
That's the reason why we ask the questions and we have people step forward so we can sort all this out, okay? Yes, ma'am. If you would please identify yourself for the record, please.
Thank you. My name is Lisa Leclerc, and I represent the Greater Nashville Hospitality Association. And I, too, have been before this group at least once or twice. In listening to this discussion, first of all, I appreciate what you all do. I sit on a commission myself, and I know that it's a volunteer position here, and we're asking a lot of you, so congratulations and thank you. In listening to this, I'm so excited about this study. We definitely need it. We have serious traffic and parking and all those problems here in our city. At the same time, knowing that the study won't be completed until March, and once the study is completed, assuming that it'll take time to implement and process what the study shares with us, I worry about our hospitality partners like the Four Seasons, the Rutledge, the Soho House, and I think I saw a Tempo on here someplace, which is another hotel. I just worry that they've already made a huge investment in our city and with full expectations of having the ability to, at the very least, secure a 1-year process to be able to valet park. So I guess I would like to hear more about what happens after March. What is the process and how quickly could that go into effect? Because am I correct? I think that the Rutledge and the Four Seasons open sometime around August, September. And so in March of next year, they'll have been open for a good 6 months, maybe 7, and then have 5 or 6 months in that year's ability to use valet parking. And I think we will be using that time to make further decisions, if I'm saying that properly.
Yes, I'm Catherine Bird. I'm with the Rutledge, and we are planning to open on the 25th of this month. I think the hotel is just a little bit farther delayed, but I understand your point, and that's why I'm here, because I do have questions about how that process will work in the interim after our temporary 90-day permit does run up. Do we just wait until March to figure that out? I just want to have clear understanding of what happens after that 90 days.
Is because the issue, this question keeps coming up, is what is the answer? I guess, there's no good time to do this study. There's no good time to do this study. Everybody wants to have this study done, but everybody wants to say not yet. Wait for my thing to come and then we'll do it.
I wanted it last year.
Yes, and everybody wants it done a year ago. So there's no good time to do most anything.
Right.
And this is the case of trying to do almost a static study in a dynamic environment. So how do we figure out how to, slice the baby to figure out what's the best approach here to try to get the study that I think all the people sitting at the table would love to have as long as it doesn't impact them. I mean, I'm not trying to be facetious here. But how do we get the study that would actually benefit the city? Because, you know, we had the mayor come here talk about sidewalk vendors. So we can see that the totality of downtown can lots of different. So pardon me for trying maybe opining or getting up here on a soapbox. But how do we kind of come to a resolution where we can get a study, allow businesses to operate, and have some clarity?
So, sir, we do anticipate that we will have those recommendations ready to bring back before this commission in March. And those recommendations would be ready for implementation. We have money in the bank to actually do the implementation of many of what we feel the recommendation. So maybe the more expensive ones we would actually will have in next year's budget to move forward. So we feel like the request of going to the March, getting to the first quarter FY23 is going to get us where we need to be to bring those recommendations to y'all. So then we all have the right platform in which we're moving forward. There's tremendous stakeholder meeting going on today. We have many different outreach. As a matter of fact, there's a survey going on today. So I ask that everybody please go online and fill out the survey for me. So I'm gonna shamelessly plug right now, but we are doing all of this. So we do feel like when we get to that point, we are expecting some low-hanging, middle, and high-hanging fruit that we would be able to go and just start knocking off the low and middle and then do more long-term planning for the high. So we feel like we'll have a good direction and recommendation that we can bring to this board to be able to move forward. That will give a lot more clarity than what we have today. And you're right, we're in this awkward in-between. And I wish the study was done a year ago, but it's not. And I want to get to the point, but adding to it is just going to continue to complicate things. And we're already at a crisis in the downtown area. And I just am asking if we could please just hold until we get the study, and then we'll have so much better direction for all of us to move forward with.
I'm trying to gather some of this, and I don't have near enough, but it looks like to me, if we take away valet parking, we're going to destroy a lot of businesses. You take Jimmy Kelly's, Urban Grub, J.W. Marriott.
None of those businesses will be affected.
Ma'am?
I'm sorry, but none of those businesses will be affected. May I explain, Chair?
I know, but if new ones come in, they would.
Yes, new ones only.
Yeah, new ones. What I'm doing is using them as an example. But new ones come in, and if they want to spend $10 million for a business and they can't do it because they don't have valet, they're going somewhere else.
Well, I can tell you, sir, right now when we're doing development review as they're coming through, we're advising them that they cannot be using the right-of-way for valet parking. We are actually making and assuring them that they find ways to accommodate that on their own private property. In this case, the request that the Rutledge is making, they'd actually be removing one lane of traffic. That's a bit worrisome. I mean, we're already at a standstill for traffic movement in downtown, and they're asking me to give another traffic lane up for their valet operations. And the Four Seasons actually has a porta share that could be utilized for a valet scenario. But we do have some of that in between, that mushiness, I want to say, that we're going to need, the gray, that we're going to need to work with the developer company and also with the businesses. We're willing to do that. We want to sit down. We want to have those conversations. But again, I think the study is going to provide us all that great framework of how we can proceed forward, not just this commission, but my department as well from a development perspective. But right now we are, as we're having conversations with developers, we're making it very clear that they need to figure out how to make valet work on their property and not within the cities right away, so that we can make sure that we're keeping the lanes open for traffic flow.
Yes, Commissioner Woods.
Thank you. I think that it's hard because people have been promised things, you know, through years of planning and bringing something here that they would not have to use their own property. I think that's hard.
Yeah, if I could speak to that real quickly, nothing's been promised. There is some expectations. So I will tell you, I've gone back, I've checked notes, I've read. In this case with the Four Seasons, there was never a promise that valet would be provided on First Avenue. There was always the expectation or the hope, but there was never a promise made. So I do want to just provide some clarity there.
And I would add to that, Metro Code is perfectly clear that it is this commission and only this commission that has the discretion to grant or deny a valet permit stand. So no one before this matter comes before this commission has any authority to promise to anyone that they will get that permit. Therefore, they do not have a reasonable business-backed expectation that they will, and they should plan accordingly. That's their responsibility and due diligence.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. Yeah, did you have, council member?
I think, so in this betwixt and between time, I think what I'm still wanting to understand is, did staff look at, so for the Rutledge, I guess, has a temporary lane closure 90-day. Within existing options, or for purposes of this study, could this commission promulgate something that is a, conditional valet stand, something like that, that just kind of gets these folks that are caught in between? Is that a possibility?
Address that, please. Legal counsel.
It's not contemplated in the chapter of the code. I'm not sure it wouldn't take legislation to do that. I mean, I'm sorry, I haven't really looked at that issue. I would have to research it, I guess. I'm sorry, I don't know.
I would really lean on Teresa more for confirmation of this, but I would imagine that if we're going to do something different than what the ordinance says, we're going to have to do some type of legislation to support it. The temporary permit is a way for us to actually be able to get them where they need to be. And like I said, in this in-between where there is maybe that misunderstanding in that gray area, we're not looking to hurt. We do want to provide, but we do not want to put us in a pickle where we do not have an opportunity to advance forward the recommendations that come out of the study. So I would say that we are going to work as these requests come up with each and every one about the request, and then we will bring that. But in this case, we have agreed to do a temporary permit to assist them. It gives us an opportunity to monitor the traffic and measure it and all of that. So we're not saying no, but we're not just saying yes to a more permanent process.
Question. So what you're saying is, I just want to make sure this is kind of what I'm hearing, is they could operate temporarily during the study time, but what you do not want to have happen is the granting of a valet permit effective June 13th, that is then doesn't renew again until June 13th of 2023.
Yes, sir.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Pretty much,
and
yes, sir.
Would they be able to operate with a temporary valet stand during the time of the study?
We would be providing them with a temporary right-of-way permit that would allow them to operate. It also gives us a chance to manage and review and study and collect the data on what's happening. We do have, right now, it's closed due to construction, but we do have some serious traffic issues on First Avenue. We're not sure if valet will have as big of an impact as the construction, but again, the study is really important, and I'm nervous about giving something up that would be a very difficult process to undo.
Okay. Council members, this help address some of your questions, concerns?
It does, because when the conversation that we had last time, this is new, what you're saying right now in this moment, right? It's not reflected in the analysis. It wasn't online. I appreciate that.
Sorry.
It's that's where we're trying to get, right?
Yes.
What does it mean for this in-between time for people who, to your point, Ms. Costones, didn't have the promise but had the presumption, perhaps. And so I guess my question was, Chair, given the current tools, like the temporary lane closure, is that a specified time? Is that at staff's discretion to determine that's what I was wanting to understand from an analysis perspective. Like, is that feasible within a certain time frame to issue temporary?
The answer is yes. I have that information here. I don't know if you want to talk about that now, but we have time frames Monday through Friday, also Saturday and Sunday.
And as to the time limit, that is our discretion as well. So we can do a 90-day in this case because we want to monitor the traffic, and we are having serious traffic congestion issues, especially down on First Avenue. We are a little bit nervous about giving an extended a time, so that's why we're starting with 90 days. But in other areas where there might be another opportunities, we can look at making further extension to get us to the March date until we have that whole framework of how we're going to advance forward through the Connect Downtown study.
Question to the other city, this loaded question maybe, but to do, as we all know, we're trying to do we're trying to figure out how to make this work. And so it sounds like under this scenario, you'd still have a valet stand. You just wouldn't have a permanent, I should maybe use that term, but you wouldn't have a permit in hand, but you'd have operational function.
Yeah, and thank
that-
you for shedding light on that. I appreciate that. I know I've had 1,000 questions, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. I obviously, for obvious reasons, I'm a little hesitant on only having it be at their discretion, only be for 90 days, because we'd be able to operate for that 90 days and it'll be great, and then it's taken away. And I understand your concerns about wanting to be able to conduct a study well so we don't have to go through this again. But I would ask that we be able to operate with the valet stand until the completion of the study in March. And then once we have all the data and once you guys have, made your final recommendations, then we could reconsider. And at that point, we would have all of the information. Is that something we could?
Commissioner Woods.
As a commission member, and I appreciate everything you all are telling us, I'd really like to know when somebody comes to us with valet, if they own the building, if they're property owners, if they are leasing the entire building that comes with parking, rather than using public parking or slowing down an entire lane of traffic, can they send their customers to the property they own? So, or manage it, or take those, move those cars to their own property, or move that valet stand, or not parking stand in front of that. Is that feasible for us to get before we vote on individual permits?
Yes, ma'am.
I think
You're
that'd be going forward. Is that correct,
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
I'm asking like starting next
Right.
month.
Right, that's
Yep.
what I'm saying, going forward.
Right, but
Yes.
we could even defer, if we don't have that information in front of us today on anyone we're voting on, we can defer that.
Yes, okay. Yes.
I'd also like to add, you mentioned a informational period during the holidays for what we learned from the study.
Well, that was for the parking study.
Right.
That's a little bit different.
From what I hear, if we're issuing these temporary permits all the way up through March, these businesses are going to be operating with these temporary permits. So maybe I would recommend during that time, we could work with them on, hey, this is what we found from the study. This is what we're recommending to do. And allowing them to pivot or adjust over that time so that it's not March, it comes out and then there's no more permit.
I promise, as soon as we have opportunities, we will have conversations. I do like to be very transparent and open.
Okay. Yes, council member.
So, Chair, I think what that goes back to then is, laying out very clearly that if we are going to do temporary, is it at staff's discretion in increments of X number of days, or is it until 1 month post-study? The latter provides a little more clarity to plan around. The former gives staff more flexibility in what is admittedly a difficult betwixt and between time. So that, again, what I am uncomfortable with, and I appreciate having good input here, and thank you all for your perspective. But, as we're talking through, this is almost like iteratively happening here at the commission as we're discussing this, rather than staff anticipating these things and bringing a proposal to this commission with the analysis to support that. So I just want to be sure when we vote today, Chair, that we understand because I'm not really sure where we are right now. I know this is discussion. We don't have a motion, but at present on the agenda, authorize a temporary pause on new curb utilization approvals, but analysis says new valet, and then we've subsequently, not in the analysis, come up with the temporary option. So will that be what we advance, the temporary option?
One of the whole purposes of these hearings, the commission, is so that we can hear from the public. To me, that's the reason why it's iterative. I don't want to sit here and be, well, just personally speaking, just taking staff reports and stamping them. I don't think that's kind of what you mean either. But I know this has been an issue because I think it's helpful to have these discussions to try to understand where we're going. So, and I'm not quite sure how much of I think we're all trying to build a kind of a box is my kind of, it's a fluid thing. So I think you want some guidelines, but I think there's some flexibility with staff to implement if there's this deferral. Is that correct, Ms. Alcorn?
Yes, sir.
If there's this deferral on doing these, if the motion to do a moratorium move forward?
Yes, sir. Yes, we have a process in which to handle the gray area until we get the study in the first quarter of FY 23.
Mr. Chair, can I make the...
I'm sorry. Sorry.
Go. Okay. Can I?
Go ahead.
Yes. Mr. Freeze, please.
Yeah, I was going to add, so temporary valets can be permitted without going before the commission. So right. we can defer these permanent valets, and then we can, as recommendation from staff, that is how it would be handled operationally.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Woods, I think you were going to maybe make a motion.
I'd like to move that we authorize a temporary pause on new curb utilization approvals.
Okay. We have a first. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a first and a second. Is there any further discussion? Yes. Council member.
I'm concerned that that's not a fully accurate motion, respectfully, because if we're making a motion about new curb utilization approvals, I think we're only doing it for valet, as I understand, and it's only new valet. And then I think we probably need to, for the record, indicate this commission's support of some sort of temporary in a time frame. I just respectfully, I think that is too broad a motion without sufficient detail. So
we have a motion and we're having a discussion of it. You have concerns about that particular motion. Okay. Are there other questions? Yes, Commissioner Mason.
I would amend the motion to say that we could authorize temporary pause on new curb for temporary permits for 90 days, as is currently the rule is, until we get information on the study for permanent consideration.
Okay. Yes, legal counsel.
So we've been calling this a temporary valet permit, and that's not really what it is.
Okay.
It's actually a lane closure permit or right-of-way closure permit. So that is pursuant to a completely different chapter of the code than the valet parking chapter of the code, which is 1241. This right-of-way closure permit is pursuant to 1320. And that is, as written in the code, completely at NDOT staff discretion. So, without amending the code, I'm not sure that you can change that.
Okay.
But, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I will make a commitment to this commission that I understand very much the intent and the conversation that we've had today, that we will live up to the expectation of what the commission has put on the table today, right, knowing that it's done through two different avenues.
Okay. And I think if we could try to have the minutes of the meeting reflect the discussion here, then I think the, I'll call it quote unquote legislative intent becomes quite clear of what we're trying to do with. I get leery of when you try to draw motions that you keep trying to firm up the box, and I'm not quite sure how it can be done. So we we have a motion. We have a first and a second.
And I apologize, Chair, just point of order, is the motion the amended motion? And then Ms. Costonis said she thought perhaps it was not a proper motion. So
Well,
what
the
motion
motion
is
that
before
has a
us?
first and a second, based on what I've heard, is the one to
Authorize a temporary pause.
pause. Right.
New curb.
New curb, that's the motion that's currently has a first and a second. And I think we have a discussion about intent, about how that's going to be done, and we have supervision over this issue that I think we can ensure that it is enforced per the conversations that we've had today. And I'm seeing a nod from Ms. Alicorn to that effect. So we have a first and a second. Is there any further discussion? Not, I'll call for the yeas and nays. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
No.
No. Okay. Did you vote? Vote, okay. All right, the motion passed. Okay. All right, so we do. We have 5 people. All right, so the next item, I'm going to maybe ask for legal counsel help on this, is this Valet Lane, which is item J. And I assume that, do we need to actually have a formal motion to defer this based on our, previous discussion?
That's a good question. I think that is tricky just because the motion is prospectively, every legislation or motion or whatever is assumed to be prospectively effective. And because that was on the agenda or part of the approved agenda before that item passed, it might be belt and suspenders to go ahead and have a separate motion on it.
Right, I
just
think
for
that
this
would seem to
time.
make sense. Okay. I would think there need a motion to indefinitely defer.
A motion to indefinitely defer item J on the agenda.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Item K is authorize a new loading zone at 1102 Grundy Street. Staff, can you refresh our memory as to your recommendation? I don't think there's some people here to speak to that. Are y'all here to speak to that issue? Okay, great. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Alex Hickory. I'm the general manager at Penn's Mechanical Company at 1102 Grundy.
Good afternoon. I'm Annie Backstrom with Waller, Lance, and Dorchin Davis on behalf of Penn's Mechanical, and we're happy to answer any questions about the permit.
Thank you for being here. Staff, could you summarize this issue again, please?
We had here on the recommendation to defer until completion of Connect Downtown Curb Management Study. I think, again, we were trying to see where things went with item I. Currently our recommendation is to defer, but can you restate the motion that we had was it just new valet? Because I thought you said curb management.
The motion I said was to Connect Downtown on item I, authorize a temporary pause on new curb utilization approvals.
Okay, all right. So, with that said, our recommendation would still stand as it is written, deferral until completion of Connect Downtown Curb Management Study.
Can you speak up?
I'm sorry, closer to the mic. So, yeah, it would stand our recommendation for this. I think I can read the analysis if you want me to. Is that correct?
Let them speak.
Okay, that's fine.
So we're here to decongest. Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Our intention is to decongest Grundy Street, which is currently closed down for infrastructure renewal for sewer and water for a 27-story project going on next to us, followed by a 12 to 15-story hotel across the street that's going to begin in the next 6 months, and then another 24-story on the north side of the building. We're in the Gibson Guitar Factory, which the only exterior doors to accept delivery is Grundy Street. The building was originally set up with a gantry system that kind of went out over 11th, which we know that that's not feasible. The street is, prior to it being shut down, there was no meters, no parking restrictions whatsoever. And so with all of the laborers in the area, in the development, we would have the frontage of our entire space filled with cars. And we use 12 different food and beverage companies that deliver to us: Amazon, DHL, FedEx, UPS. We have deliveries 6-7 days, multiple times a day. And they're forced to stop in the middle of the street because there's nowhere for them to pull over. So we're asking for that space in front of our location so trucks can get out of the way and service the building.
And just to add to that, given the legislative intent recently discussed and read into the record, we're here to ask if there's, a way to approve this permit in light of the recent discussion and the intent to apply the moratorium to new valet permits only. Or if we need to request a one-meeting deferral,
When are y'all looking to have this loading zone operational, please?
Well, it's unclear as to when Grundy will be finished with the current construction project. I've been given many dates, and we're way past them. I believe it's not going to be done until the fall, probably. So I can't really give you an answer as to when it's going to be done. But now that this road is under construction, now's the time for this conversation to be had, so when it does reopen, we can operate without tying up the street.
Okay. Council member?
How are you conducting the business now, the loading and so forth? How are you executing that presently?
It's quite a dance right now. Our vendors are finding anywhere that they can possibly put their truck to roll in deliveries to us. It's more complicated with Grundy being shut down. They're using Porter, they're using 11th, they're using 12th over by NES, anywhere that they could possibly park. The problem with vendors that aren't Nashville-based beer, wine, liquor, food vendors, when we talk about UPS, FedEx, DHL, sometimes they just won't come, and we'll have to go get it, and it makes it difficult.
Chair, may I ask a follow-up question?
Go ahead. Yes.
Have you discussed with NDOT staff in the context of the ongoing construction, right? So it is a Metro water project, but also adjacent construction, providing you some sort of, temporary, responsive to the construction that's in progress. Have you been accommodated in that regard? And might that at this time be a helpful request rather than kind of saying prospectively, post-water project, post-construction, post-study, we want to have this loading zone here? Might there, again, you see the theme today, kind of the interim step that would be supportive of your business? Have you had that conversation with NDOT?
So not with NDOT, but Yates Construction that is handling the project undergoing right now on Grundy. They have been accommodating to us. They had to make a main connection at 11th and Grundy with sewer and water, and they're working their way towards 12th Avenue and backfilling, so trucks are able to sneak in there right now at the end of Grundy at 11th.
And I apologize, that is the contractor for Metro government doing the water project.
Correct.
I do just want to clarify, we have spoken with Rory Rowan, who did initially recommend that we apply for the loading zone permit to alleviate some of these issues. And we were, had a walkthrough on site with him and recommended because the way the construction is set up, they'll open a part of the street as they finish a section. So it could be the case that by the end of the summer, the street is open because they're opening it up, incrementally. So he recommended that we go ahead and apply for the permit so it's ready to go when they do open, because the section where the loading zone would be located may be open earlier than the entire street, if that makes sense.
That was a representative from NDOT that you said made that recommendation?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Who was that? Rory Rowan.
May I just ask when that was? I mean, just along the continuum. I mean, was that a year ago, 3 months ago, before the Connect Downtown study? Could you contextualize it someplace?
That was within the last month. And correct me if I'm wrong, if you have any incremental.
Well, you were on the agenda last month, so it had to be before.
I've been speaking with Rory since before the street project began about how it was going to affect us, what Public Works was going to do to alleviate some of the issues by shutting down the southbound lane on 11th Avenue, which never happened. But we've been discussing it for the better part of a year and a half.
Okay, so over the course of a year and a half. Okay.
Yes, Ms. Director.
Thank you. I would like to have the opportunity to bring the appropriate staff members in to have the conversation with them. Again, this is in the bubble area that's tied to Connect Downtown. There is some long-term vision in this area because as this area is growing and changing, which it is currently under construction and will be, there'll be a larger demand for the unloading and for parking and for bikes and for scooters and for this and for that. So we really would like to have more of a long-term discussion. Mr. Rory is over the right-of-way when it comes to permitting construction, not necessarily for a long-term business perspective. So if we could set up a meeting and have that conversation, I would prefer that.
Okay, I think it seems like the street's still under construction. If this was granted today, you wouldn't be able to use it for several months. And if it wasn't granted today, you still have some time. So it may be a deferral for another 30 days. Okay. Okay. Is there a motion?
I move to defer.
We have a motion to defer.
I'll second.
We have a second. First and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank y'all for coming in. Really, it is helpful to get input, very much so. All right.
And Chair, as a point of order on that last item, could I inquire that if that is deferred and then they have conversations with staff, might the application or the agenda item be different next time if it were to be temporary? Or, I mean, do we contemplate that they could make a different request subsequent to the discussion?
Well, my understanding, this allows a request for a loading zone on this area to be still on the agenda, and there's a possibility that, I mean, some dynamics of it could change.
Okay.
That's how I see this, is that they got a request for a loading zone. That request could modify between now and next meeting, but the request stays so that they have a placeholder on the agenda, which I think from their perspective is most important, is still be on the agenda. Is that satisfying?
Thank you, that clarifies. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next item, item HIJKL has been withdrawn. Item N is to authorize new parking restrictions, no parking or standing anytime 24/7 on the west side of 18th Avenue from Edge Hill to Chet Atkins. This has been requested by a constituent. See.
I understand that staff is recommending deferral on item, are we on N? M, sorry.
M as in Mary.
I believe it's a recommends approval.
Right. I think it's a recommendation for approval. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
There is a motion to approve.
Second.
There's a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
The next item of business is item N, which is to authorize removal of 2 parking meters D119 and D121 on Church Street to facilitate marking a new center turn lane between 17th Avenue North and 18th Avenue North. This says it's requested by a resident. Staff.
Yes,
Think this is for construction of a new hotel?
Not this one. This one was really just a left turn to improve congestion. We wanted to look a little further into possible conflicts with pedestrians and the left turn movement if we did create this lane. So we wanted to defer it and just give staff a little bit more time to look over it. So, yeah.
Is there a motion? Is there a motion to defer? Or council members?
I guess my question was going to be for an analysis of that kind of magnitude with the turn lane and Church Street, do we need a 1 meeting deferral or 2?
2 for counts for pedestrians.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion for a 2 meeting deferral, please.
2 meeting deferral. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any further discussion? All in favor? Okay. All right, item O, which is to authorize removal of 2 parking meters, C926 and C928 on 9th Avenue North, facilitate construction of entrance to a new parking garage for the Hilltop Tempo at the southwest corner of Commerce and Rosa L. Parks, requested by Bell Construction.
And just one comment, we would try to relocate these meters, but we do want to try to accommodate the construction.
Okay. All right, council member.
I think I have a question, Chair, that might inform the motion. So I was a little confused in how this was written, both on the agenda and the analysis, because I think construction is the key word, right? To facilitate the construction of an entrance to the new parking garage requested by the construction company, and the analysis said 2 meters in the way of entryway construction. So I guess what I'm asking, is this a temporary removal or relocation for purposes of construction, or will this be gone in perpetuity for the ingress and egress of the hotel garage to work? It's the latter.
Yeah,
okay, again,
yes.
I would ask staff, just please make sure that that is clear both on the agenda and otherwise. So, okay, thank you, Chair.
That will be one of our ongoing process improvements. Okay. All right. So now that we're clear, is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Okay. Item P is to authorize a new Valet Lane at 500 Houston Street for Soho House, requested by Parking Management Company. Staff?
I think the recommendation was to approve. I think this fell outside of the Connect Downtown study. And that's where we have the 60-foot valet zone for approval.
Move approval.
There's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. First and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's been approved. Okay. Item Q is to authorize removal of 17 metered spaces and 3 existing loading zones, traffic signal modifications, 3rd Avenue North and Dedrick, 3rd Avenue North and Union, 3rd Avenue North and Commerce, and signage and pavement marking modifications to facilitate the installation of a new bicycle lane on 3rd Avenue North from James Robinson Parkway to Broadway, requested by NDOT. Is there anyone here in the audience to speak to this matter? Just curious. Yes, ma'am. You are? Okay. Why don't you step forward and just go ahead and make your comments, please? Yes, okay, I saw one more. Okay. Please state your name again for the record.
Lisa LeClaire, I'm with the Greater Nashville Hospitality Association. I initially came here and would connect the dots to this project to the same one we were talking about deferring for the valet or parking right-of-way. And I think this should be part of the bigger study of the downtown connectivity. And so it would make sense to me that this would be included in that, and so it would be deferred until that March of next year when the study is complete.
Chair.
Comment. Yes, ma'am.
Ms. LeClaire, is that the official position of the Hospitality Association?
Yes, it is.
All right. And will you want to speak about this? Yes. Yes, please step forward. State your name for the record, please. Yes. No, turn the mic on. Start again.
Hi, Michael Hayes with CB Wright & Company. I wanted to echo her comments relative to the pause until such time as the Downtown Connect study is complete. I also participated pretty heavily in the 2019 public input process relative to the bike lanes on 3rd Avenue South, the walk bike study that talked about these in 2015. I'm a property owner with probably 7 or 8 parcels on 3rd Avenue South. The property owners along 3rd were incredibly concerned on 3rd Avenue South when this was first planned and proposed, and through the public meeting process, all objected fairly heavily to the idea of bike lanes until such time as loading zones were figured out. I know that tonight you guys are talking about 3rd Avenue North only, but a phase 3 of this project is on 3rd Avenue South. In addition, the NDOT person who was leading this process at the time, Michael Briggs, is no longer at NDOT. You know, as we went back and forth and talked about bike lanes, we certainly need them downtown. We talked a lot about the location and where this would be or could be. And you know, there are certainly other streets that have more capacity, like 2nd, like 4th, even 1st Avenue. There's a partial bike lane by Send Amphitheater in West Riverfront Park. So I would encourage the commission tonight to defer consistent with the pause that you guys have contemplated earlier on any new loading zones or anything else at the curb. This is a pretty significant modification of the curb.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Hayes, appreciate you coming forward. Yes, ma'am.
Could I just clarify?
Yes, please make a clarification.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to clarify that on behalf of the Greater Nashville Hospitality Association, we are not anti-bike and not anti-walking. Okay. We just wanted to add this to the deferral list, as was previously mentioned, for consideration in the bigger project of connectivity.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, commissioners.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay.
Make a motion that we defer this until the community outreach has been completed, which would be staff will come back to us and tell us when to bring it up again. Is that what you're recommending?
Yes, we would come back
Okay.
when that community outreach was complete.
Great.
Okay. We have a motion to defer. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a first and a second. Is there discussion? Council member.
Yes, respectfully, I still feel like that's maybe an insufficiently specific motion, because if we're saying until the community engagement is complete, you know, to Mr. Hayes's point, for this stretch in particular, I had occasion to run into Councilman O'Connell. This is in his district. He and I both served on the steering committee and the subcommittees of the 2016 Walk and Bike Strategic Plan, of which the downtown core bike lanes were a deliverable. I think that plan contemplated 3rd. I don't dispute that as we rethink 2nd Avenue, maybe, you know, we might want to do something different. But I do just want to kind of state for the record that while I concur subsequent to, or rather below, south of Broadway, there were more issues. as I understood it, community engagement, business engagement, all design. I mean, you can see, colleagues, the design appended to our agenda is from several years ago. Councilman O'Connell was also under the impression that this commission had already moved to remove those 17 meters. That was his impression. He did ask that we check that. But so I guess what I'm saying is, Mr. Briggs, Mr. Byrd at planning, I mean, there was a lot of process that has already happened relative to that northern segment. So I would want to understand, is it till the end of the Connect Downtown study? What is community engagement? Is it a certain number of months? I'm just looking for some more specificity in our motions, respectfully.
Commissioner Wood, you made the motion.
I don't know. I'd be happy to wait for an answer for the commissioner.
Looking at the fingers that are pointing back at me, 2 months is being requested for community engagement. We have had ongoing community engagement, but we just wanted to touch back with our community on this.
I'd like to change my motion then. Hold on one moment.
Yep.
There's been zero out.
Well, wait just a second, please,
Yes,
Mr. Hayes.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Let me
We're
withdraw.
not-
I'd like to withdraw my motion.
We're not here to discuss what that process is, and
No,
we'll
sir,
work, excuse me, please, sir.
Yes, sir.
Allow us to have our deliberation here, and we will always make sure that stakeholders get included in the process, please. Okay. Commissioner Woods.
I'd like to withdraw my motion and make a new motion.
Okay. Please amend it. Please.
I'd like to amend my motion to defer this decision for 3 months to give us plenty of time.
Okay.
Request is for 2 for community outreach.
Okay. There's a motion to defer
Second.
for 3 months. There's a second. And please note to staff that there's obviously people who are stakeholders in this that we need to make sure that they are reached out to because my favorite phrase is the process should be our friend. So, okay. All right. Okay. So we have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay. Mr. Hayes, we'll make sure you are heard, okay? All right. Item R is to authorize a request for complimentary parking at the public square garage for the 2022 Let Freedom Sing Music City 4th of July celebration, July 2nd through July 5, requested by the Nashville Convention Visitor Center. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a second? First and a second. Okay. Any discussion?
Yes, Chair. I would like to speak in opposition, and I also wanted to inquire, did Councilman O'Connell send a letter to the commission regarding this item?
I don't recall. Seeing anything from Councilmember O'Connell.
I didn't know if in the meantime.
What's the point of concern here, please?
So I think the point of concern that I have, as well as my colleagues and a number of them, not speaking for the entire council, is that while we appreciate volunteers, we want to support community. We can't be kind of picking favorites about free parking. And as we all know, free parking begets traffic. And so I just, the analysis chair says something to the effect of, we've done this before. But I guess I would ask, how many times have we done this before and for whom? Because do we approve this just because somebody asks, or do we have sort of parameters on it? I'm just very concerned that, we have something as big as the Convention and Visitors Bureau and 4th of July. Yay. Hope everybody comes downtown. And then, as you'll see on our next agenda item, a very worthy, I'm sure, small nonprofit for their event. But do we know, are we going to open the floodgates and say, every nonprofit, every host event can come to this commission and request free parking. I think that is a very slippery slope. I think it sort of gets us in a space of picking favorites, and I would just ask colleagues and commissioners to consider that while in isolation it just seems like, oh, yay, that's fine, we want to be supportive of this event, the knock-on effect and the larger implications of that are very significant, and so I will not be supporting this motion.
Thank you. Well, we do have a motion. We have a first and a second. Are there any other comments?
I think based on the council representative's points, is there a process in place that the city has to approve these or not?
I'm assuming these been processed based on request, and typically I think the convention center has made these, or the visitor
That's correct.
center.
At the request of the convention center, they have been based on request. We don't get frequent requests. These are rare occurrences that we have, but no, there is no current process as far as that.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Are they limited to events where the Metropolitan government itself is a co-sponsor of the event?
Yes, and nonprofit events.
Okay. Say that again, please.
Yes, and nonprofit events.
Okay.
In Metro involvement, Metro event, Metro sponsored events, or events that Metro is involved in and sponsoring, but also nonprofit
Okay. So
events.
the question relates to a Metro sponsored event. We know this is a Metro sponsored event. Is that
That's correct.
How many Metro sponsored events are there? Do we know? Downtown?
I don't have that answer for you today, but we can get that back.
Council member.
I would say there are a significant number that come through council, but I think that would be important to know. So I guess you said there's no process, but then you also said that you will entertain the requests of Metro co-sponsorship, and if something is a 501c3 organization. So there's no process, but is there a policy, and where is that policy?
There is no direct policy.
So it's just in practice, historically, if Metro is a co-sponsor.
Correct.
Again, colleagues, if we want to codify a process that says for Metro-sponsored events and for 501c3 nonprofits, we will entertain giving X number of parking. But I just, I know that, again, I would like to know how many times this has happened. That's not part of the analysis. And Mr. Freeze, you can say, and I respect that this doesn't happen often, but it'll start happening a lot more often, colleagues, when we start giving the free parking away. Because if we do it for this event or we do it for this nonprofit, then literally every walk charitable thing is going to be lined up.
Thank you. Made your point. All right. Yes, please.
I think the council representative brings up good points, and I think we should ask for a policy to be put in place, more specifics. So I'd like to withdraw my second for the.
Okay. So, all right. So what we have here is a first with the second withdrawn. Ms. Costones, can you speak to what kind of process this commission could implement for something like this, or does it make any difference?
I think it would really be more NDOT that would create a written policy.
We can create a policy for the traffic and parking to consider, but it would be the oversight of traffic and parking to approve that policy.
Okay.
Yes, the Traffic and Parking Commission is the only one who can grant the free spaces within the garages because you all control the rates set at the garages.
Okay. So, okay. All right. So right now we do not have a motion on this item because the second's been withdrawn. Is there anyone who'd like to make a motion that would be different or would be modified?
I would like to make a motion to decline or not approve the request for complimentary parking.
We have a motion to decline. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a first and a second on that one. Okay. Any discussion of that?
My discussion is, are we going to, I'm sure the people are used to doing this, so they're going to, do we know how many people will be affected by this, a guesstimate?
Not at this time, no.
Okay, there's someone.
Could you please step forward? It just helps if you step forward, please.
You all are doing such good work and having good discussions. Thank you, thank you. I will say that I do not have that information, but I know a colleague in the back of the room here is trying to gather that information. The Let Freedom Sings event has been held here for, gosh, I don't even know how many years that the Nashville Convention and Visitors Corporation has sponsored this. I can't imagine, I don't know how many parking spaces are in that garage, but I imagine that a lot of people take advantage of that and would be expecting that for this upcoming 4th of July. And I certainly understand that having a process for this does make sense. I'm just not sure not approving it for this event is at the right timing of that with the event so close. So I would just like to respectfully offer that opinion, and if I can just turn around and see if my colleague has gotten that answer back here.
I have a question. So these parking spaces, are they first come, first serve, or how does that work?
I thought it was for staff.
If I could, may I, Mr. Chair? So it is over the 4-day period, and a majority of the spaces will be used for volunteers. So the volunteers that come down and actually support the event that is going on, and so it could even be Metro staff that's volunteering to come down. So that's what the spaces are used for. That's why the request is in for complimentary parking.
Another question, if this is denied, can the Convention Bureau provide places for these people to park?
I would have to touch base with them and speak with them and find out what an alternative would be. As mentioned, this has been a standard practice. We're all for having the conversation with them, especially now that we're looking to get the parking program up and running. This will be one of the many things that we'll be having the conversation with over the course of the next year. Just to put that out on the table. But for this year, it is mainly used for their volunteers to be parking.
Right. And since they're asking to use the Metro stuff, perhaps they've got an alternative.
They could
I do not know, but I'm more than happy to have the conversation with them just in case.
I guess the question becomes, would they validate people's parking? That's typically what's done for events is a sponsor. That's
certainly can go back and
price of admission is validating the parking.
Right.
Okay. Is there, yes.
I guess my question is, have these volunteers been promised free parking prior to it passing this commission?
I truly don't have that information.
I do not know. I'll be more than happy to speak with them and find out. But typically, to put on a show like that attracts over 600, 700,000 people into the downtown area, it takes quite a number of people to actually pull the event off. The Convention Bureau, Convention Visitor Bureau has been very gracious in supporting this event for multiple years. And so I think the offset's always been that we provided the complimentary parking for the volunteers to make the event successful in our garage. And that's been the standard practice. But I'm more than willing to have the conversation about alternatives. I would ask the commission to consider allowing us to move forward with that this year and then have the conversation about what that looks like, even to the point of maybe them paying for it, not necessarily asking for complimentary.
Do we know the number of spaces in that garage just offhand? Sorry for the pop quiz.
The overall.
Just trying to take it. I know it's a large parking garage.
It's a pretty big garage. Yeah, there's over 1,000 spaces in the garage, so this is going to be
less than 10.
Yeah.
It's 1,000 parking spaces that are free. Is that correct?
No, sir. Actually, they have it broken down to where Saturday they want 50, Sunday they want 100, Monday they want 250, and then on Tuesday they want another 50. So they need.
Okay, so it's a limited number
each day. Correct.
Right. So I think this this would almost read like the entire garage is being turned over to complimentary parking for staff. That's.
Oh, no,
That-
sir, just a
that's-
certain number of
That's
spaces.
how, one way to read it. Is that how you were interpreting it,
Well-
council member?
Chair, I did see the analysis, so again, that goes to how our agenda versus our analysis. If one were to read the agenda, yes, Chair, one would think that it was just open, free parking. If you read the analysis, you can see the breakdown, but again, the analysis is not online, so how would a community member know that it's in fact 50 spaces one day, 100 spaces another, 250 another? So I think it could be misinterpreted by the community that we're just saying, all free parking. So I appreciate that it's being articulated here that it's not, that it's a finite number. So.
The only motion on the table right now is a motion to deny the limited number of complimentary parking spaces. We have a first and a second. Is there any further discussion? I move for the yeas and the nays.
I would like to.
Yes, you want
make
more.
a different motion.
Well, we have to vote on the one that's before us before we can move forward.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion before us.
Do we have to vote on this motion, or can he make can he make
We
an
can have
amendment?
some further discussion. I mean,
The sponsor
you-
can withdraw the motion.
you can, unless someone wants to withdraw it. I mean, you had withdrawn your second on the previous motion, which
Right,
made it
right.
go away.
Should I propose something in discussion?
You can, why don't you propose something in discussion?
It's fine.
Why don't you discuss out loud your idea? How about that? I think that meets legal counsel's definition.
I 100% hear what the point is, and given the limited number of spaces that are specified here and the size of the garage, we grant this request, but ask staff to provide a process for any future recommendations for parking with supportive information. For example, the number of spaces of the garage, number of spaces that's going to be taken up, lost revenue for any future events such like this be taking place after this one.
I'll amend my motion, Chair. Is that appropriate?
Okay, yes, council member.
Okay. I would amend my motion, given the tight time frame and the precedent that we've had and the fact that we've articulated into the record that we want to establish a policy for this and that we don't necessarily contemplate or nobody should assume that this is something that's going to happen next year. I would, I guess, move approval with a request for staff to, promulgate some sort of policy, a fair, transparent policy for the parking.
Okay.
And I'll second that motion.
All right, so I think to encapsulate the motion, it is a motion to accept the limited number of complimentary spaces for this event with a implementation of a process for further evaluation. Is that correct? Okay. So there's a first and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
I'm going to abstain, Chair. I'm going to abstain.
You got to abstain from your motion. Okay, thank you. All right. The next item is an authorized request for complimentary parking at the public square garage for the Women Touched by Addiction Day. That is Saturday, July 23rd. This has been requested by a constituent. Staff, in light of our previous conversation, you provide some details, please.
If I could please speak? Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a request that's come in from an individual with the nonprofit group of Women Touched by Addiction. It's an event that they're holding on July the 23rd. They are asking for 100 complimentary spaces for volunteers and attendees for the event on this day. So as staff's actually moving it forward with the recommendation of approval.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? Okay, the motion is sitting there. Okay, council member.
My question, I mean, I can wait till subsequent to, but I just wanted to ask, does staff confirm that these are a valid 501c3?
No, ma'am, I do not believe we have done that at this time.
Okay, so while we stated earlier that historically what we would do is assume that it's a partner, is Metro a co-sponsor for this? Is this event at the public square? So the event is at Public Square, but is Metro Government a co-sponsor, or a department of Metro Government as a co-sponsor?
Not that I'm aware of. This is an individual nonprofit event that's being held at the Public Square.
Okay.
Is there any other motion?
It pains me because obviously this is a worthy cause, but I think just given the precedent setting, the fact that there is over a month of time prior to the event, I would move a decline.
You would move to decline.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion to vote no, decline. Is there a second? Okay. Okay. All right. Is there an alternative motion?
We meet again in July.
July the 11th.
Can we come back? Can I make a motion to defer this until July the 11th?
Yes, you may.
Information. I make a motion to defer to the 11th until we get the questions answered that Councilwoman Commissioner also raised.
So we have a motion to defer.
I'll second that.
We have a second on that motion. Is there any further discussion?
I would like to also add just the information on the number of spaces, lost revenue, in addition to what the councilwoman requested.
All right. Any further discussion? We have all in favor? Any opposed?
No.
You're opposed to the deferral. Okay. Passed. Okay. The last item is a update on the downtown sidewalk vending regulations. We heard from the mayor earlier today. Is there anyone else here to speak to that? Okay. Yes. Mr. Smith.
My name's Andrew Smith. I'm an engineer with NDOT. The Sidewalk Advisory Committee met on May 23rd at the Nashville Downtown Partnership. We heard from the members of the partnership, the MNPD. We had representation from NDOT. The Davidson County Clerk had a person in attendance, and we had a couple of sidewalk vendors that were there. After this meeting, NDOT decided to reach out to the EMS services and to the health department because we needed more information from those agencies. Now, we have scheduled follow-up meetings starting next week, and we'll meet weekly until we can present you with some draft regulations at the next Traffic and Parking Commission meeting.
Is the plan to have a recommendation for July the 11th? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other? Yes.
Could I ask when those upcoming meetings are? Could you speak those into the record, please?
Yes, sir. Sorry. Yes, ma'am. They are on Thursdays, not this Thursday, but the following Thursday. And those dates are the 23rd, the 30th, and the 7th.
Okay, 30th. And where will those meetings be, and who are currently on the Sidewalk Advisory Committee?
There's about a dozen members or so that include the Davidson County Clerk, MNPD, NDOT, sidewalk vendors, Nashville Downtown Partnership, and they're at the Nashville Downtown Partnership.
Okay, and then Health and Fire are going
also,
to
yes,
join?
Health and Fire. Health and Fire didn't attend the first one, but they've been invited to the subsequent ones.
Okay, and then last question, Chair, will Ms. Costonis draft the policy to be before us at next meeting?
I don't know who drafts the who is the actual drafter of these?
We will work with Ms. Costonis.
Yes,
in
they
drafting.
work with legal to
I am
draft it.
unfortunately unable to make the 6:23 meeting.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Well, I think one of the things that came out from the discussion today is why it's important to have a council member on this commission, because many of these items are codified that we're trying to discuss, and it's going to take not only this commission, but the council as a whole. We want to make improvements to our curb management in this city. All right. I think we're ready. Yes. Oh, next month, we have elections. So the next month, we will be meeting at a place to be determined, or have we determined it yet? We will not be meeting here because there'll be voting booths here.
We got 3 alternate sites, but we will.
Okay, they'll let us know. So please look to be on the lookout for the place to be determined. It will not be here due to the election. Yes, ma'am.
Chair, may I ask, please, of staff that we get the minutes for this meeting before the next meeting, as soon as possible, close to this meeting?
I think, at the beginning of the meeting, we discussed some of the process improvements we're trying to make, and part of this is trying to get information out in a timely manner, not only to commissioners, but to make sure that the public is fully informed.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Is this where I make my motion to dismiss?
Yes.
Motion to dismiss?
We motion to dismiss.
Second.
It has
Adjourn,
been
I believe.
second. It has been approved.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov